Well, I was born and raised in a small farm town in southeast Iowa, Morning Sun, Iowa. At 6 years old, I had a lawnmower accident that nearly severed my leg, and it was a situation that then limited me in many things over the years, but a coach and my parents both gave me confidence and said, "You can do it. You've got what it takes." And the coach happened to be the wrestling coach, Coach Bob Dara, and I decided at 13 years old that I wanted to coach because of Coach Dara. And I went on to wrestle in high school. I was a state qualifier, so I went on to a college career and wrestled at Coe College for Coach Baron Bremner. But the real reason I wrestled was because I knew I wanted to coach this sport in high school. And I became friends with Coach Don Briggs and Coach Chuck Patton, the UNI head and assistant coach, and they impacted my life a lot. And because of them, I got a great coaching job at Mount Vernon High School.
One thing about Coach Johnson, he was never about, hey, we got to win this match, we got to win this match, or we got to win this tournament. He was never about winning. He was always about getting better, and that's one thing I remember the most about him, that I always got better throughout my high school career, and it never stopped when Tim Johnson was around.
Throughout my high school and college competitive career and coaching career, my mother never missed me wrestling and coaching. I became involved with United States Wrestling Federation, led the Iowa team then with Coach Dara and Jim Miller, and got involved on a national scene that way. And so when they offered me the opportunity to come down and live in Stillwater, I thought it sounded like an adventure. I was single, and I got to travel the nation setting up events for USWF. In 1984, I was asked to move from Stillwater to LA for the 1984 Olympics to be the director of competition for that event. And it was a great event, and it was a great opportunity for me to direct those games. The Olympics were not the highlight for me. I met Leroy Smith, and we were roommates, and he was such a tremendous person and has become such a great friend. In fact, introducing me to my wife. Her name was Lisa, and married her 3 months later on the Queen Mary in Long Beach, 2 weeks before the Olympics. I really wondered if I could do anything else but wrestling. So when the opportunity came to direct the Wichita Metropolitan YMCA's, I said, why not? It's leadership. I had a great interest in growing in leadership. So Lisa and I set out for Wichita, and for the next almost 5 years, I directed the operations and overall programming for the Wichita YMCA's. I believe the coaches are the greatest influencers of young people in the history of our society, and I decided that I really wanted to see coaches coached. We know who's coaching the athletes, but who's coaching the coaches, and that was a growing interest for me. And so I became the director for the American Sport Education Program and moved to Champaign, where Lisa and I proceeded to raise our family. 3 years later, we were called into the Fellowship of Christian Athletes ministry as Illinois' first state director. And so Lisa and I joined FCA together, and we have been ministering with FCA ever since.
Tim Johnson is as quality as a person I've ever met. He's a great leader. I'm around him in his leadership positions here, both with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and him as a board president of our local YMCA where I work. And he just leads in a great way, and people look up to him, they respect him, and he just has a way of making everybody feel good about themselves.
I've made a life out of doing things that I didn't know anything about. And Chuck Patton called me up and said, I'm going to be moving to the state of Washington. I've been doing the color commentary for Iowa Public Television's college wrestling series, and I told Doug Brooker, the producer, that you would be a good replacement.
I've been Tim Johnson's television producer now for nearly 30 years. Through his early formative years at Iowa Public Television, then on to the Big Ten Network, and most recently at the 2012 Olympics in London. And during that time period, I've seen Tim grow and mature as a broadcaster. But I've also noticed that he is probably the most positive, can-do, sort of energetic person I've ever worked with. He's a great team player, he's a valuable resource, and he was willing to put in the time and research to really hone his skills. And that's obviously apparent that he's now become an ESPN caliber broadcaster.
I believe that the way that ESPN, the Big Ten Network, and other entities in the television network have stepped up and started presenting wrestling is so important. Brought the heroes of our sport into the living rooms of our young people, and that's really important for the growth of our sport. Between Dan Gable as my partner with Iowa Public Television for so many years, and now Jim Gibbons, my broadcast partner for the Big Ten Network, I have it really easy.
Tim Johnson is, quite frankly, one of the most positive people I've ever met in my life. And he spent a great deal of time in his life focusing on the positive attributes and character of others. And it's because of this others orientation that he possesses that he's carved out a significant spot in our sport.
If life is about relationships, and I believe it is, then I am a very blessed man, because the majority of my best and most meaningful relationships have come in the wrestling community. And so to be inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame is way beyond anything I've ever thought or dreamed of, and it is a great honor, and I'm very, very thankful.